All right, so this meeting of the Infrastructure and Energy Committee on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 is being recorded and will be posted for future viewing on the Town of Barnstable website. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, anyone else desiring to make such a recording or transmission must notify the chair. So with that, you all can get started.
Okay, great. We're official. Okay, so let's take a look at the meeting minutes from the last meeting. They looked fine to me. Anyone with any suggested corrections or edits? If not,
good.
Okay, have a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Anyone not? Okay, we've approved the minutes. Well, next, for old business, I see we have a green communities designation. I don't have any updates. I did send an email to Dave Anthony to see whether he had any updates, but I didn't hear back. Does anyone else have anything? And I think just a minute, John.
Yeah.
But just I think understanding that from our prior conversation with Dave Anthony, it would take some considerable time to do what I think the expectation is we're probably waiting probably in the order of several months to do the work that you need. But I'll try to stay in touch to so I can report progress. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I wanted to make a suggestion. It seems to me that I guess it was a couple of years ago, Dave Anthony did a lot of work to satisfy all of the green community requirements, except for one, that being the building code. And then it all kind of went for naught because the building code, the stretch code was not approved by the town council. So it seems it's kind of tough on Dave to ask him to do all that work again, not knowing if we're going to get the stretch code provision through or not. So my suggestion is let's go ahead and see if we can get the stretch code provision approved. If it is approved, then that would give Dave a lot more incentive to go ahead and do all that other work that needs to be done.
Well, yeah, my understanding of the 5 requirement that let me just say this, Peter, and then I'll let you. But from what he said and my understanding as well, the requirements have basically already been satisfied. One is that's outstanding is the stretch code, and the other is having a plan for 20% energy reduction. Those are the 2 things that he's working on, and maybe I can get an update on that, as well as it'd be good to get the documentation for what already has been achieved.
Yeah. Barry, others jump in because my memory isn't always perfect, but my memory is that Dave said that he wasn't really involved with the building code, that he could, he sort of saw the other 4 requirements as in his court, but the stretch code, I think he saw that as kind of outside of his purview.
Go ahead, Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
I think that the way I understood it was Dave is responding to Mark Ellis. And Mark Ellis said, before we do anything else, you need to tell me how we're going to staff this thing. And so I think that you're gonna lose Mark Ellis from the get-go if you jump the staffing issue.
So I think, can I jump in? I think from a town council point of view, I think we need to approach the stretch code first. We have a capital budget, and then an operating budget that's going to take us till the end of May. Some long meetings. And I think after that, I've talked to some of the agenda meetings and brought up the fact that we need a workshop on green communities just to, because we've got a whole new batch of people in the town council. So I think, I agree, the way we can't do anything until we get the stretch code passed. I think that we have to start there. Because we're not, there's no reason to do anything else.
Yeah.
But go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just want to say that I would argue, I would be, I would advocate for passing the stretch code regardless of the other green communities provisions. I mean, I think the stretch code is a good thing and the town should adopt it. So we can approach it from the point of view that we're saying that this is something we recommend that the town do because it will save energy and help the environment, and it's a good, it's a good code. And so we're not, I don't think we're stepping on anybody's toes by doing that. We're not saying that you necessarily we're not we're not sort of getting out in front of anybody. I hope.
Well, yeah. So this is where my understanding is a little bit different from yours. So I agree with what Peter said. First, there was a staffing issue, and that he needed to pass by the Markells before he went forward, and that's really kind of one of the things I wanted to hear an update. I just may call him and find out where he is with that. It'd be good to know. But my understanding was that he would also be looking into the stretch code, and that I saw him taking ownership of the entirety of the issue. And there were two things that are outstanding: the stretch code, as well as having an energy plan that, at least on a planning basis, provides for 20%.
Yeah,
and that he did a lot of work on that last time. It seems to me that the opposition last time was on the basis of the code, the building code, the stretch code. So let me, I think, as the next action item, I think I need to find out where he is on it and how he views his responsibilities, whether it extends to the stretch code issue or not.
I mean, his job that the stretch code comes under the building inspector. I don't think that's part of his job description.
Right, but the building inspector's role is simply to implement whatever code.
Yeah.
That is, he's not really, as I understand it, it's not a policy position.
Right, but I think it was his opposition previously that I think defeated it. And as the official charged with enforcing it, I think the town council rightly listens to his point of view. But do other people have a recollection of what Dave said about this?
What, there was Brian Florence?
No, I mean, I really thought that Dave said that he just was that he would that the other things fell under his area, and if he could get if he could get the staffing, that these could be done provided he had the resources. But that I recall him saying that the stretch code was just not something that was independent of what he was doing.
No, it's really a policy change by the town council. Yeah. And last time Brian Florence sort of argued that he wanted to develop his own code, and he took his idea to the state board, and it didn't fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think there's reason to be optimistic that the stretch code could pass this time.
Yeah.
And again, I'm saying that we should try to get the town council to pass that, regardless of the green communities question.
But it seems to me that we need to wait, as Gordon said, if they're going to be tied up with budget for a while, before we present something on stretch code, if indeed Dave Anthony would like us to do that in parallel with what he's doing. Seems like we need to wait for the workshop on the whole green communities thing, because I think that will that will help the counselors that are new to this issue understand it, and would be an update for others, because I think they've changed, they've tweaked the Green Communities program every year. And so it seems to me we can be thinking about that if that's something Dave Anthony thinks we should, run with in parallel with him. But I don't think the timing will be right. That from what Gordon has just said, it doesn't seem like the timing is right to present that to the town council till maybe June, huh?
If I can
Right.
just add, I'm just looking at the meeting minutes from the 13th, and I won't opine either way, but what David said as we sort of summarized the conversation was that the committee could certainly be most helpful in researching, communicating, and pursuing support for stretch code. So I think that goes in line with what you all are saying, with lining up the timing to sort of start having those conversations with town council. But that his next steps currently include responding to the town manager's request for an analysis to better understand the workload and staff support needs, and that we left it with that he would likely come back and present an update to the committee sometime in June. So if that helps anyone with sort of next steps.
That is helpful. I think it reinforces the timeline that Gordon was suggesting.
So I think I guess two things. What this says to me is follow up with Dave Anthony in terms of where he's at, and I do want to ask him about how he views his responsibilities, whether they extend to the stretch code or not. But it sounds like we can spend the time as a committee focus. It really first, I think, educating ourselves what's involved in the stretch code. How does it differ now from what it was several years ago when it didn't pass the town council? Then I agree with Gordon. I don't think we're ready to do that. Maybe we can help. Gordon, do you think that the leadership will want to have a workshop on this topic?
I think it's a different group, and I think they're more open to it.
Yeah, so let's whether they do or not, I think our
try again.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I'm just saying.
I
agree.
Yeah, whether there is going to be a workshop or not, I think we should do the work in terms of educating ourselves first on where things are at with the stretch code. So the next question, do people agree with that? And then who ought to do it? I think we could get the regional administrator for green communities, at least have a discussion, and maybe invite her to one of our meetings.
Yeah, I agree.
And I can remember fairly clearly, Allison Alessi was one of the people who spoke in favor of the green communities at that December meeting that was voted to a draw. And she is a green architect. She's a sustainable design architect who is certified to do passive design. And she said that on something like her last 60 projects, because she's building to green standards, she and her clients went through the process that would be required for meeting the stretch code. And part of it was getting a HERS rating, which is a pre-inspection and then, an analysis of your plans and that sort of thing, your design. And she said in every case, it was an extra step, but it was helpful in improving the design and ultimately saving money, being a more sustainable building. That's a pretty good quantity of projects. So she might be willing to, she was on this committee for a number of years. She might be willing to give us a refresher of what I remember her saying, and then the subsequent 2 years, as she's probably continued to meet the stretch code because that's what her clientele want her to do. She might be a good expert educator for us in addition to the state office, not in place of, but in addition to.
No, I think that's great. You want to get in touch with her
Sure.
and yeah. You have the schedule for the next couple of meetings and maybe see if we could invite her.
That would be, yeah, I'd be glad to do that.
Um, so I think in terms of, I think it would be better. I'm somewhat sensitive. I don't want to get in front of David Anthony. Let me get in touch with him to find out where he's at. And then I just want to be clear about where he sees his role with respect to the stretch code. And I'll probably say, we'd like to get in touch with the DOER Green Communities person for a region and perhaps invite her to a meeting and just run that by him just to see whether he has any problem with it. He may be in touch with her for the energy plan part of it, I think. So
Sounds good. Sounds good.
yeah. Okay. I think we've made some progress there. Any other suggestions? All right. Let's move on to food waste. So I think last time, Jane, you mentioned the Falmouth Food Waste Program, and I think you circulated, a newspaper story about it. Maybe you could tell us what you know, whether you've learned anything more.
I haven't gotten any more information from Falmouth. However, just sort of coincidentally, another group I'm working with, just as with some, they're just bringing in some outside ideas. Care for the Cape Cod and the Islands is a nonprofit that many of you may have heard of. They work on all sorts of things in terms of pulling groups together that are interested in similar issues. And one of their main focuses right now, for which they've gotten a fairly big grant from, I think from Woods Hole, is to try to reduce the takeout plastic waste from the from the restaurants across the Cape, the dishes and the cutlery that rather than having plastic or styrofoam, they're trying to get the restaurant industry to switch to compostable. And as part of that, they've also been involved with, her name is just going out of my head, our Cape Cod Extension, Cooperative Extension person, who's the
Parcel.
Yeah, they've been involved in discussions with her, with Black Earth, and related organizations on trying to get more food waste composted. So I actually just learned that kind of middle of the day today, but that's another group to plug into to see, what's happening where. And I think Care for the Cape and Islands is more Yarmouth based. So they're working with the Yarmouth recycling program, I believe. This is really patchy information, but it does appear that Black Earth is very much involved in their discussions as they try to get more, both the food and the takeout, dishes and so forth, compostable and composted.
Yeah, I take it that exists, compostable dinnerware.
Yeah, well, yes. The cutlery is like bamboo, or some of it's, obviously wood. Some of it looks like plastic, but it's a compostable plastic that I think is made of, instead of plastic, it's actually made of cornstarch. And then the dishes that I'm familiar with that are compostable tend to look like compressed cardboard. But they're clearly not styrofoam. They're not clear plastic. So it is kind of a related issue, but it brings them into discussions with the restaurant industry where they could certainly be, introducing the food waste piece of it as well. And they're already talking about that. And I just don't have all the minutes from their meetings.
Okay. All right. Let me go to John, because I think, I think you had some action items from the last meeting, if I remember, on food waste and.
Yeah, I was, the two things I remember was, one was to look further into what folks in Falmouth are doing to see if there are any ideas that might apply to us as well. And then the other was, as I understood it, to try to move forward working with town employees to implement some of the suggestions that we have for how to increase increase collection of food waste. So I looked at the material that Jane had sent previously, and I did try reaching out to one of the folks who was involved over there, although I haven't heard back. The things in Falmouth were, one thing I think they're doing is very good is they're setting up food waste collection points that are open to the general public. You don't have to have a transfer station sticker to, anybody can drop off their food waste there. I think that's a great idea, and I was trying to find out more about exactly how they do that, because it seems to me there'd be some logistical difficulties. I think that'd be a great thing to do. I think that would be a hard thing to implement in the town of Falmouth. Excuse me, it's a hard thing to implement in the town of Barnstable. The way the transfer station is set up and the way it operates, I think they really don't want people without stickers coming on to the premises there. So I think that would be a really tough sell to the DPW to say, gee, can we make that food waste collection shed available to the general public, even if you don't have a sticker? Maybe some point down the road, it would be great to talk about ways that people who don't use the transfer station for other trash could have a place to bring their food waste. But for now, I'm staying focused on just what we can do to collect more food waste from people who do go to the transfer station, because the sort of where I think we started on all this was there are a lot of people who go to the transfer station and recycle very conscientiously, but very few of them include food waste in their recycling. So I think there's an opportunity there that we're trying to capitalize on. The other thing in Falmouth where they're doing some great stuff is in the schools. And I think that's a great area to focus on. I think there is already some stuff going on in the Barnstable schools, particularly at the high school and maybe at the middle school as well. But that's outside of anything that I feel that I can really try to move forward with. I just, I've never had kids in that school system. My kids aren't school age anymore, and I just don't feel close enough to that world to try to do anything there.
Well, John, excuse me, that talk that you gave at the Rotary event, as you were winding up your talk, Betty Ludke, who's another one of our town councilors, came in to listen to I think it was the Cape Light Compact talk that followed you, but she picked up on the food waste composting comments and discussion the tail end of it, and said she thought it would be a great idea to get that going in the schools. She does have kids in the schools, and she feels like there's a huge amount of food waste because a lot of the prepared meals the kids don't want to eat. So she thinks there's a huge amount of food wasted. And, there's lots of angles you can take on that problem, but that food waste composting in the schools was something that, that she, as a town councilor, one of Gordon's fellow councilors, did strike her that that was a great idea.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's terrific. Go ahead, Gordon. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think there's a woman who's running the recycling and the composting in the schools in Falmouth. By the end of this year, by the end of June, they will be composting in all the elementary school, in all the schools in town. They've also, interestingly, they brought the dishwashers back. They rehabbed the dishwashers so they can reuse the
Reusable,
silverware and
yeah.
the trays.
And the Nauset school system is collecting silverware to be able to use silverware that will get washed. That was
Yep.
part of this other discussion I was in. So instead of throwing away plastic silverware, they're going to reuse metal silverware.
Yeah.
So why don't I'll call the schools and see who would be the contact person for the whole school.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to talk to anybody at the
Sure.
schools.
Yeah, maybe we
I
could,
just,
yeah.
I don't know who to call, I also have the sense that there are a lot of people who have ideas about what the schools should be doing, and so it's probably
In all
a
sorts of
crowded
ways, yeah.
space. But just to finish up on what I've done since last time, I've got a sort of a handful of fairly, I think, fairly simple, straightforward things that we could do, particularly at the transfer station, to try to raise awareness. In particular, we're coming up to the time when people renew their stickers. And that's an opportunity to communicate. That's a great opportunity to communicate to the users and try to, say, hey, this is something you should be doing. So I'd really like to capitalize on that. But I've kind of I haven't been able to, in my various efforts to try to do this just kind of as a citizen or as a member of a committee. I find it hard to to implement ideas, and I don't, I think that all the folks running the transfer station, all of town employees, they all have, everybody's being pushed hard, and they're all busy and have a lot of demands being placed on them. And if I just walk in off the street and say, hey, this is how I think you should do your job, I don't get, I mean, I'm not, I don't take offense if people are politely maybe do a little bit of it, but so my view is that to make significant progress on this, we need some way of getting the town council to engage with the town manager or DPW or one way. I don't know exactly what I don't know exactly how the liaison sort of piece of it works, but I think in order to move forward with this, we need some direction through the appropriate channels, whatever they are, to say, specifically to the folks running the transfer station, this is a priority. And if there are things that can be done that aren't crazy expensive, we should do them.
Yeah, do they still have money in their recycling account?
We have money in the recycling account. I mean, just sort of to give you an example, we I think it's almost maybe a couple of years ago now, we did these rack cards or flyers or whatever that we wanted to give out with the stickers when they were renewed. And my understanding was that they would be, and they were, as I understand, as far as I know, they were mailed with the stickers. But at one point, they stopped giving them out, to people who walked in, which is a lot of the people, and they said that, well, people were just throwing them in the trash, and so they thought that they shouldn't just do that because they were being wasted, and I disagree with that. I think we should give them to people. I mean, we made them. I understand that. That's not the flyers isn't the greatest way to do something. It was the best idea we could come up with, and if we made them, we might as well give them out.
You should recommend they take away the wastebasket.
Yeah, I mean the other issue was signage. That I think it'd be really helpful to have a sign that was visible from the recycling area. Because
That's
people
what-
come and they recycle all their paper and plastic, and there's big sign plastic here, paper there. The food waste shed does have a very nice big conspicuous sign, but it's not facing the recycling area. And you don't really see it unless you happen to look over to your left as you're driving out. Actually, you're sort of looking to the right because you want to make sure the people who have skipped recycling you're merging with. You don't want to crash into them. So, I was really advocating for a sign that could be visible from so when you're doing your paper and plastic, you see, oh, food waste. Maybe I could do that too. But that was not something I could get done. So with that situation, I'm sort of feel I've done what I can as far as just sort of making polite suggestions. And unless someone has some idea of how we can a different channel to try to get this prioritized, I sort of feel like I'm at the end of what I can do. I mean, I'll continue to do small things that I can, but
No, go ahead, Mark.
I think we have to step back and go through the chain of command. I think we have to
yes,
go
that's
up and
that's
over.
exactly.
I think we have to go. I think you need to make your recommendations precise and clear, and then write them down so that they can go to the town council, we can give it to the leadership, and they meet with the town manager. And then if it comes downhill from the town manager, goes up and around, that's the way to do it. So it would be the weight of the town manager behind it.
Well, okay. Well, if I still have the floor, Barry, can I share with everybody real quick my list of recommendations?
Sure.
So the first one would be signage that's visible from the recycling area. The second one would be to use the various town social media sites to promote this.
Mhm.
The third one would just be the transfer station has a web page as part of the town website. There's a transfer station web page, and we should highlight that. We should highlight food waste on that web page. We could use the signboard. There's a signboard at the entrance to the transfer station. It says like when it's going to be closed, and they have other messages there, so we could use that. And then sticker renewal, using that as a way. And I don't know if we're doing stickers anymore or if it's going to license plates this year.
That was my comment. I don't think they're going to be stickers.
No,
So
right. So when people go, I
there's
guess you
still
probably
the
do it online.
process.
Or
There's still
however
the
you
process
sign
of
up.
renewing. Yeah.
Yeah. When
Right.
however, I shouldn't say sticker renewal. Your permit renewal, I guess.
Right.
But to
It's gonna
use
be-
that renewal as an opportunity to communicate. So those are the specific suggestions, and then the last one is it just sort of more general that I think we should set a goal. My suggestion would be that by 2030 we want to get 50 if we can get 50% of the food waste that goes through the transfer station, if we can get that collected separately by 2030, that would be a goal to work towards. And I think it's helpful to set a goal and then we monitor our progress towards that goal. And then we can, it's sort of as a way of kind of measuring what's working. So I'd be happy to write that up into a little list. And I just sort of need to know what channel do I send it to through.
I think you should, and I appreciate it. And if anyone has any suggestions, I can send to Kelly. She can send to us. Any of our group have other suggestions, or we can go through that same process to add on to your list or modify them. So I have a question. So the way I look at this is me personally at food waste composting. I'm a gardener, vegetable gardener. I take all the vegetable scraps, fruit, that stuff. I compost them in my own composter. The stuff that that goes eventually into my garden, and the stuff that is not suitable for composting in your backyard, like the meat scraps and fish and whatnot. That's what I send to the transfer station for feeding the pigs. So and I don't know whether is that a preferred way of composting. If so, I would maybe that's something that can be added to that list in terms of advice to people.
Yeah. I would say that backyard composting like you're doing,
Yeah.
I'd say that's equally good. Maybe even preferred.
Yeah.
Not everybody has the space to do that,
Right.
and not everybody has the inclination to do that.
Sure. Yeah.
And there can be issues associated with that. Depending on where you do it and how close it is to your neighbor's yard. Some people have had issues. I mean, I'm all for it. I think that backyard composting is great, and maybe even better than collecting at the central point.
Right.
But
so they can work.
The central point is for, as you say, the meat and other things that don't go in the backyard, and also for people who lack either the space or the inclination.
So, when I came here, I'd say my first reaction to hearing about food waste composting or collection at the transfer station, I was confused because I was composting myself, and then I understood that what they would take was much broader than I was comfortable composting in my backyard.
Mhm.
So, and it took me a while to really grasp that. So, anyways, just to suggest maybe to what could be added on. I think that might be useful to some people anyway. So that's a small point, but
yeah, it's great. No, it's an important point. It's great feedback, and it's something that I think I can see how we haven't emphasized enough that that's a great way to do it too.
Okay, and then I have a question about process. This is a question really. Is it worthwhile? I think Dan Santos, who's in charge of the Department of Public Works, sits atop the transfer station, and on top of him is the town manager and then the town council. Is it worthwhile to have a sit down with Dan Santos first, before going up to the town council? Yeah.
It's been a while, but he did meet with us. He was all in favor of this, as I recall.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a different memory of that? It's been a year or so, but he thought this was a great thing to emphasize. And I think at that time, John, were we asking him for some of that recycling money to buy the bins and to buy to pay for the flyers? I think we were.
Right. That's
and
right.
He was very supportive.
If he can get his support, my thought is if you can get his support, and then if money is needed, then a request can be made to the town council with the support of him, of the DPW and the town manager and this committee. That really puts a lot of strength behind the request. So anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Kelly. I have a question about how to do that with is that something, for example, if John and I asked Dan for a meeting, if is that the best way to approach it?
Yeah, I mean, and I know that, John did reach out to Tracy, who is the supervisor over at the solid waste division. I was on that email. I kind of stay away from responding to things until I'm given direction, but that ultimately would be what I would do. I would probably ask Dan for a meeting and likely include Tracy on that as well.
Okay.
And that would be the best approach to take.
Okay, so basically ask for a meeting with Dan and Tracy and perhaps John and myself.
Yeah, because it could be that Tracy's looking for additional direction from Dan as well.
Okay.
That's why he hasn't really sort of moved forward with things, or I don't really know. To be completely honest with my role, I am DPW wide, but I don't interact a lot with the transfer station. They kind of manage their own thing there. So I don't know what some of their processes are, but I would suggest if you're going to ask for a meeting with Dan that, make the suggestion that Tracy's, part of that conversation too.
Okay. No, it's a good suggestion. Thank you. So, so why don't I'll follow up and try to set something up. You think that's the best way to do it, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly talk to him as well and, either give him sort of the heads up of this is something they're interested in doing. And it probably would be me that would schedule the meeting anyway. So
Well, why don't you give him a heads up, and
I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
And I'll wait a couple of days and call him.
It probably won't, just knowing, like Gordon referred to earlier with the budget season that we're in right now. DPW has got a lion's share of the projects that are going to be presented at the April 25th meeting. So I would tell you, don't be offended if it doesn't happen in the next week, because it's sort of all hands on deck right now, but I can certainly let him know that that's something you guys are interested in having in the next couple of weeks.
I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was productive. And anyone else have any other suggestions?
I would just say that you should look at the solid waste numbers for the goals for DEP. Maybe John could do that, and just, are there goals for cutting down on food waste that we could parallel and saying, in concert with the state, we want to get there. But
yeah, the DPW has said their target is to get all of the food waste out of the municipal waste stream by 2030. I think that's pretty ambitious.
The DPW said that?
No, so
DEP, Department of Environment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
DEP.
We want the DPW to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to close out the food waste discussion, the other piece of it is commercial food waste, which is a huge opportunity. It's a more complicated it's a more complicated thing. One concern there is that I think sometimes when in response to the prohibition on putting more than a half ton of food waste into the waste stream, sometimes people will use their disposals instead. And of course, that's something particularly here in Barnstable we really don't want people to do. So that's one hesitancy I have about pushing that issue. I'd heard that at the hospital, they when they heard when they heard about the waste, the organics waste ban, they went out and bought a whole bunch of heavy duty garbage grinders so they could put it all into the sewer. That's what I heard. I don't know that for a fact, but that's a potential concern. I don't know. Do folks think that's something that we should try to dip our toe into at this point, or are we better just to not try to open up that can of worms?
Well, in terms of saying no to a garbage disposal, is that what you're saying? Or just in terms of addressing the commercial sector?
Yeah. One of the concerns I have with pushing commercial food waste collection too hard is if a restaurant decides, well, we'll just put it all down the drain then. I mean, maybe that's not a feasible thing in a restaurant. Maybe that's a concern I am.
Yeah, I don't know how many would do that, but I do know that one solution is what the high school did with that student project a number of years back that the Challenger group picked up on, which was basically the food waste dehydrators. They're the cookers that would dehydrate, and I think they could take, if you get the larger ones, they could do like up to 250 pounds over an 8-hour period. They dehydrate the waste. It goes down to about 1/10 of the size, and it's like peat moss when you finish with it. And so it's dry and it can be easily added to any other, compost. You don't have to worry about having wet food waste. So that's another tact. I don't know how many commercial entities would be willing to invest in one of those things because they're quite a bit more expensive probably than the food grinders, but it's certainly a better solution. So you're treating it at the point of production and you're dehydrating it. And that's one of the things we're trying to, get taken care of by the composting process.
Yeah, I think that's a great solution. My guess is that most businesses would prefer to just hire somebody to haul it away.
Probably most, but maybe they haven't thought about it, and maybe they haven't they haven't been in an environment in the past where there was a statewide regulation to try to encourage different behavior.
I think it's a sort of an unfunded mandate.
I agree.
I think
Right.
I think it would be nice to have a meeting with the Board of Health and say, what can your inspectors do, or maybe let's find places like the there's a bakery Anton runs, the guy from Belgium, where he recycles everything. Maybe we should get a few people who are doing it and offer a workshop, but it should be maybe with the food inspectors who are in kitchens all the time. And I know DEP will come down and train people if.
Yeah, and the other place that does it, and they have really good videos online of what they did in terms of training their kitchens during their transition, is UMass Amherst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some good videos. Yep.
Because they do composting wide on the whole campus, and including the kitchens, and they have some really good videos about how important it was to train kitchen staff that you don't just scrape everything into the same garbage can anymore. You put the compostables in one place and the non-compostables in another. And, it was a pretty serious, careful training program because you didn't want to, slow down progress, slow down their work, make it too complicated. I think it even involved, restructuring where things were in the kitchen.
Right.
But they're an a state educational organization. They could probably chime in.
But I think we just have to work with education and encouragement, and not.
I think really on the transfer station side, in terms of the users, it's all voluntary. We're just asking people to do it voluntarily. On the commercial side, there is an actual regulation. But Gordon, if we could get a meeting with the Board of Health, that'd be tremendous. And just to start out, just get their thoughts about how could we communicate, just communicate the existence of this, and maybe as an initial matter, just see how people are reacting to it. Are people saying, "Oh no, this is impossible. I couldn't. This is going to put me out of business." Or some people may say, "Well, if I've got to bear this extra cost, I don't think it's a huge cost, but it is some cost to it. If I have to bear this extra cost, all my competitors should have to do it too."
Maybe we have money we can buy containers for people. I don't know. But I think it would be nice to talk to the health inspectors who are in kitchens every day. They might have a sense of who's doing it, who isn't, where it works. So
they probably have a much better idea than us. Yeah, that'd be great. Good.
I'll talk to John. We'll talk, John.
Yeah.
Okay, just quickly. So there's a Board of Health, and I just looked at a couple of their agendas. So there was nothing about food waste on that. And then you've got the health department, which I guess does the inspections. But I don't know to what extent they're really looking at food waste. And that's really a state mandate, right?
Right.
But the local inspectors are responsible for implementing it.
No, I think it's completely voluntary. It's the guidelines that one, it's unfunded.
Nobody's
mandate.
inspecting it right now, are they?
No.
Right. So I mean, are the local even responsible for inspecting and implementing, or is that at the state level? I don't know how the state would.
I think it is at the state level, and DEP is doing some enforcement, not a lot of enforcement, but they are doing some enforcement.
Okay.
And it is a it's not voluntary. It is a rule.
Well, yeah, just to give
they're
a
not-
context, it's like it's 1,000 pounds a week, which is 143 pounds per day. Now, I don't know whether just your normal restaurant would even have that much food.
Yeah.
It has to be pretty big.
It's down. They lowered it to 500 pounds a week, or no, excuse me. You're right.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
you're
that's a half a ton of, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
But based on the state has an estimate of how many businesses statewide are subject to
Okay.
this. And if you sort of do it, proportional to population, sort of back of the envelope, I figure there must be at least 100 in town that
Okay.
would be
Well, I'll
subject.
tell you what, we're coming sort of to the end. We have another agenda item, so let's carry that over to the next meeting and maybe give that have more discussion on that. What might we do at the sort of the commercial level?
Okay.
And really, and I get a better sense of what are the businesses or institutions in the town that are subject to the state law. Yeah, it's not really clear to me. At first I was thinking of large restaurants, but 143 pounds a day. I'm not sure. Yeah. So, okay. So
Barry?
any,
Barry?
yeah, go ahead. I'm
Um,
sorry, Rob, go ahead.
that 143 pounds a day or whatever, is that just food, or is that like stuff contaminated with food, like paper plates and all that crap?
Well, it's organic. That's a good question, whether they define it basically as organic waste. But I don't know whether that includes paper or not.
Because once you start throwing away, half sodas or cups full of water or ice, partially melted ice, you're going to get to 143 pounds really quick.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you can get check the definition and maybe talk about it the next meeting. I think the last thing we had on our agenda was the Commission on Energy Infrastructure Siting and Permitting, and Kelly circulated the final recommendations of the commission, which came out at the end of March. I think our last meeting was before that. And let me give a very very brief summary. So the recommendations involved a consolidated state permit that the Energy Facility Siting Board would provide to jurisdictional projects, which would include solar and wind over 25 megawatts, would include the any transmission connecting to a jurisdictional project, or really the transmission lines or interconnection lines that would be coming from offshore wind would all be included. So it's different, as I understand from what exists now, is that on a case-by-case basis at the request of an applicant, the siting board can grant exemptions from state zoning and other rules, but this is, and you'd go and get state approvals, local approvals separately. What they're trying to do is put it all together so that the localities or municipalities would essentially join and advise on this consolidated state process. For federal law purposes, this can't be done for all state permits, but they're going to try to make it as consolidated as possible. they also, for ones that were not jurisdictional, they recommended allowing the applicant to opt into this process. And on ones that are not jurisdictional, the siting board, the recommendation was consolidating the municipal. Now, there are multiple permits that goes into one process, and setting up uniform standards for the siting board, and so part of the purpose is to speed up the process and make it more, I guess, quote, rational, unquote. But in connection with this, they also wanted to require community engagement before filing. And I'm not sure exactly what is required now and what essentially that would entail, but under rules that would be developed. Now, most of this requires legislative approval, and there are some bills that are under discussion now. There were some, I guess, another one of the recommendations is to have constructive approval, where that if a permit, at least at the siting board level, was not granted within 18 months, it would deem to be approved. And I've had experience with those sorts of laws, and sometimes people find ways to get around it. So I do think, from what I understand, there's a staffing problem at the siting board. That's one of the reasons this process, often takes years, can take 3 or 4 years. And I think that was one of the things, if they can rectify that, which probably includes more funding. So anyway, that
What does it mean for Barnstable for the wind? What is it? What's it
well,
going
I
to
don't
do
know
to
whether
the process?
I don't know whether it means much, because Vineyard Wind, go by each of the 3 projects. Vineyard Wind has already been fully permitted, is in construction, and Park City Wind, which we're calling New England Wind 1, has siting board approval. There are some there's an outstanding issue with the town where an easement has been requested, or authorization from the legislature, and that's been granted, but they haven't given the
Is that the Craigville landing, the Craigville beach landing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know whether any of this would apply to that. Now, the third project at Dowses Beach, New England Wind 2 is being called now, is that's before the siting board. It depends on the transition rules, or whether if there is new legislation, would it apply to a project that is kind of in process, and that may depend on the transition rules. And I would expect it would take months to develop the rules, even if legislation is enacted. One of the things that they did not recommend, which I know New York has done, is actually to provide monetary assistance to municipalities that are hosting projects that are large enough to warrant this kind of funding. And that was one of the things that people were asked about in the survey, but that was not included in the recommendation. Yeah, and it's so it could potentially affect Commonwealth Wind or New England Wind 2, but probably not the others.
So we're just standing by. We're just being aware of this at this point. Is that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
so the town commented, and I think the Mass Municipal Association represents the municipalities in the town. They were not in agreement with most of the recommendations, particularly the consolidated state permitting and the consolidated municipal permitting. I think if it's at the municipal level, they were recommending just allowing municipalities to opt into consolidated permitting. That anyone have anything further to say about that?
I don't have anything further to say about that. I have one other issue I just wanted to give
Sure.
a heads up on. No discussion, just some opportunities to comment. It has to do with the bikes and the transportation planning that we've talked about from time to time. Just some.
Okay. Go ahead.
I can send that out. It's just that the commission Cape Cod Commission is holding, in conjunction, I think, with our transportation planning, Metropolitan Transportation Planning District is holding some hearings to get stakeholder feedback on some of the improvements in the bike trails, I believe. But it's just something that some of us may want to give some input on. I can send the communication to Kelly if that's okay, and you can share it in case people are interested in giving feedback to these public hearings.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
And the other thing that's happening, opportunity to give feedback, isn't it the long-term planning commission or process is asking for feedback. They're going around to the different towns,
Right.
giving summaries of where they are. They're not completely finished, but they're interested in citizen feedback and where they are on the planning process.
Is this on the countywide basis or the town?
No, that is town.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah.
transportation is countywide, but it
Got it.
affects everybody. So, yeah.
Are
Okay.
you talking about, Jane, the local comprehensive plan?
Yeah,
Their
local
their village
comprehensive
meetings?
plan.
Yep.
Those are just opportunities to be aware of.
Great. Thank you.
Barry,
Yes.
as long as we're impromptu notifications, Mass DOT is having a virtual update, I guess it is, on the canal bridges week on the 25th.
I'm sorry, Mass.
DOT,
Oh, yeah, Department of Transportation.
Department of Transportation.
Yeah.
So and then there'll be an in-person one in May or sometime. It's in, I think, Buzzards Bay. So stay tuned.
What was that on, Rob? Did you say outages?
No, the Cape Cod Canal bridges.
Oh, bridges. Okay, definitely didn't hear
no,
that right.
Does anyone care about those?
Yeah, I actually read one of the plans and they had 6 different alternatives, if I recall. And scenario 6 was filling in the canal. That I don't think that got much support. But I guess they wanted to cover all the potential bases. Anyway, all right. So I don't have any additional updates. You want to briefly talk about the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah, sure. If you guys have thoughts.
Okay, so I think just what we've talked about. So I can report with John on the follow-up regarding a meeting with Dan Santos. And I'll also follow up because I'll be in touch with Dave Anthony about green communities designation and potentially DOER as well.
So is this the meeting for the 7th?
Yes.
Our next 7th, I think our next meeting we had scheduled for the 29th, unless I had that wrong.
Oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute.
I don't know. I have meetings all over the place for this, and I have no idea which is right.
Everything should be right, other than when we just we revised this meeting. So on the town, oh, you're right, the 7th. So I must have just not deleted that from Zoom. The next meeting is May 7th. So I would go off of, if you have something that's different in your calendar, let me know, but I would go off of the town website because all of the meetings that we decided on are on the committee page on the town website.
I have April 29th.
Yeah, I have that in Zoom as well. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, April 29th would be our fourth Monday.
Right. So I think that's a regularly planned. So yeah, so maybe we can put it on the town website, but that's our normally planned meeting.
Okay, yeah.
And you know, today's meeting got put off because of Patriots Day.
Right.
And then the meetings in May are a little different. May 7th instead of the 6th. Okay, that's
It would normally be the 13th, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so what I have on, so I must have just not updated the town website with the 29th, but what I have is the 7th, May 7th, and then the 28th of May. And then
so I have May 7th.
yeah.
So the reason is I had two conflicts in May.
Oh, okay.
I have a board meeting for another organization I'm on that had a conflict Monday, May 6th, so we moved it to the 7th. And then the 28th. I'm going to be out of the country the middle of the month, so I'll be back. It's Tuesday the 28th. That's the meeting after that.
Okay. So in May, it's the 7th and the 28th.
So in May, right, and we will have a meeting Monday, April 29th.
Yeah, so that's okay. So that I set the meeting up with everyone's calendars on the 29th, and I do have it on the town calendar, but it's not showing up on the committee page. So I will look into that. But I do have the 29th as well, so that invite is correct.
Okay. And then just to mention that there are two candidates who, that recommended by the appointments committee to the town council, but maybe before we meet next, the town council will have acted on it. We'll find out. I think the rules are they have to vote twice, but they can vote to waive the rules and just have one vote. All right, so for agenda for next, is there anything that I left out?
Well, I'll get in touch with Allison Alessi and see if she's willing to talk to us about her, support for the stretch code. And if she's unable to help us, she may have a colleague who does the same sort of green design and green architecture.
That's great. Thank you. I forgot that. Yeah.
It may not be for next meeting, but I'll be working.
Okay.
And I'll also, John, I'll try to find out more about this collaboration between the group that's trying to focus on compostable takeout dishes and cutlery, and how some of their conversations might be helpful to our thoughts about how to approach the restaurants particularly.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be a solution if we just went to chopsticks.
Or if you go to an Ethiopian restaurant, you don't have any utensils.
There you go. There you go. Yeah,
you just have a giant teff pancake and you just rip off part of it and pick up your food.
That's true.
No dishes, no utensils.
All right. Well, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Seems like
moved.
we're done. Okay.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Well, thank you, everyone, and thought it was a good meeting, and we'll see you on April 29th.
All right. Thanks.
Okay,
Good night.
thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.